New York. The Empire State. A glittering beacon of ambition, from the soaring skyscrapers of Manhattan to the thunderous roar of Niagara Falls. It's a state that never sleeps, a monument to human achievement. But for every shining tower, there is a deep, dark basement. For every celebrated dream, there is a nightmare forgotten in the shadows. New York has a long memory, and it holds on to its pain, its tragedies, and its sins, with a ghostly grip. Tonight, we venture beyond the postcard image. We are counting down the top 15 most haunted places in New York. From the cursed prisons and asylums upstate to the brownstones of Brooklyn that hide unspeakable secrets. But be warned. The energy we are about to explore is not just folklore. It is the residue of violence, despair, and sudden death, documented by historians and witnessed by terrified visitors who learned that in New York, the past is never really past. 1. The House of Death, Manhattan. A beautiful, upscale brownstone in the heart of Greenwich Village that has earned its macabre nickname by housing more than 20 distinct ghosts within its walls. The history is a tapestry of tragedy. Built in the 1850s, it has been home to a who's who of sorrow. Its most famous spectral resident is the author Mark Twain, who lived there briefly and unhappily. But he is far from alone. The ghost of a little girl named Claudia, who died of suffocation, and the angry spirit of a former doctor are also permanent tenants. The paranormal encounter here is one of overwhelming activity. Residents and visitors report the sound of phantom piano music, the scent of Twain's cigar smoke, and the playful giggles of a child echoing from empty rooms. But the mood can shift in an instant. Many have felt the oppressive presence of the Doctor, a cold, malevolent force that pushes people, whispers threats, and projects pure hatred. The climactic story comes from a family who lived there in the 1990s. Their young daughter began having conversations with an imaginary friend named Claudia. One night, the parents were woken by their daughter's screams. They found her in the hallway, pointing at a tall, shadowy figure of a man holding a scalpel. The figure advanced before vanishing into thin air. The family moved out within the week, leaving their possessions behind. The House of Death proves that in New York City, even a multi-million-dollar address can come with permanent and terrifying roommates. 2. The Eternal Flame in Chestnut Ridge Park, Orchard Park. A natural wonder where a small waterfall cascades over a cave, and a flickering flame burns behind the water's veil, a flame fueled by a natural gas seep, and according to legend, by an ancient, tragic spirit. The history is rooted in Native American lore. The story tells of a young Seneca woman who, grieving the loss of her love, came to this cave and lit a fire to ward off her sorrow. She vowed to keep the flame alive forever. She died there, alone, and her spirit is said to have merged with the eternal fire. The paranormal encounter here is deeply spiritual and unsettling. Visitors who approach the flame report a sudden, profound sadness washing over them. The air grows still and heavy. Some see the fleeting apparition of a woman in deerskin standing behind the waterfall. Others hear a soft, mournful weeping that seems to come from the very rocks themselves. The climactic story involves a group of hikers who tried to extinguish the flame as a prank. As they splashed water into the cave, they heard a shrill, furious scream echo through the gorge. The temperature plummeted, and one of the hikers was pushed violently into the creek by an unseen force. The flame, of course, reignited moments later. They fled, convinced they had angered a guardian that was far older than any city. The eternal flame is a reminder that the oldest ghosts in New York predate its European history, and their connection to the land is absolute. 3. The Morris-Jumel Mansion, Manhattan. Washington's headquarters during the Revolutionary War, a stunning Georgian Palladian villa that is the oldest house in Manhattan, and a battleground for the feuding ghosts of a treacherous wife and her murdered husband. The history is a scandalous drama. In the 19th century, the wealthy Stephen Jumel married the socialite Eliza Bowen. After Jumel died in a mysterious accident, many believe Eliza pushed him off a hay wagon. She later married the notorious Vice President Aaron Burr. The marriage was brief and bitter, ending in a divorce fueled by Burr's infidelity. The paranormal encounter is one of domestic spectral warfare. Eliza's spirit, a proud and commanding presence, is often seen in her former bedroom, watching from the windows. But Stephen Jumel is here too, his spirit angry and betrayed. Doors slam on their own, objects fly off shelves, and the sound of furious, whispered arguments echo from empty rooms. The climactic story is witnessed by a tour guide. While closing up alone, she saw the distinct apparition of Aaron Burr, looking haggard and annoyed, sitting at the dining room table. As she watched, a vase suddenly flew off the mantelpiece and shattered against the wall opposite him. He merely sighed and faded away, as if this was a common, post-mortem occurrence for him. A permanent prisoner of his ex-wife's haunted house. The Morris-Jumel Mansion is a time capsule where history's personal grudges continue to play out for all eternity. 4. The Bull's Head Inn, Chemung County. A crumbling, 19th-century tavern and inn along the old Susquehanna Turnpike, where the ghosts of weary travelers and a murdered woman are forced to reenact their final, desperate moments. The history is one of frontier violence. The inn was a bustling stop for cattle drovers and pioneers. It was also the site of a brutal, unsolved murder. A young woman, believed to be a traveler or a maid, was found dead in one of the upstairs rooms, her throat slit. The killer was never found. The paranormal encounter is intense and residual. Visitors report the sound of raucous, phantom laughter and clinking glasses from the bar area, as if a party from another century is in full swing. But upstairs, the atmosphere changes to one of pure terror. The sound of a woman screaming is followed by a chilling silence. A dark, shadowy figure of a man has been seen fleeing down the hallway, only to disappear at the top of the stairs. The climactic story was captured by paranormal investigators. In the infamous murder room, they set up a motion-activated camera. In the middle of the night, the camera triggered. The footage shows a bedroom door swinging slowly open on its own. Then, clearly visible in the dusty air, a perfect set of handprints appear on the doorframe, as if someone invisible was struggling to hold on, before being dragged, violently, out of the room. The Bull's Head Inn is a stage where the actors are long dead, but the performance. 5. The House by the Railroad, Nyack. A towering, Victorian mansion immortalized in the haunting painting by Edward Hopper, a place that seems to radiate loneliness from its very foundations, attracting spirits who are drawn to its isolating energy. The history is shrouded in mystery. The house itself, built in the Gilded Age, has seen countless families come and go, each leaving their own imprint of joy and sorrow. But its true notoriety comes from Hopper's 1925 masterpiece, which captures the building in an stark, unsettling light, making it an icon of American solitude. The paranormal encounter is less about violent activity and more about a profound, psychic emptiness. Those who have lived there or visited report an overwhelming feeling of being watched from the upper windows by unseen eyes. The sound of phantom train whistles blare at all hours, though no track runs nearby. Shadow figures are seen pacing in the rooms, forever trapped in their own private, silent worlds. The climactic story involves a previous owner. He claimed that every night, he would see the ghost of a woman in a white Victorian dress standing on the landing of the main staircase. She would never look at him, but simply stare out the window, as if waiting for a train, or a person, that was never coming. He said her sadness was so palpable it would make him physically ill, a deep sorrow that had seeped into the wallpaper and floorboards. The house by the railroad stands as a monument to loneliness, proving that a building can absorb emotion and replay it for anyone who dares to step inside. 6. The Amityville Horror House, Amityville. The most famous haunted house in America. A quiet, Dutch colonial home on a suburban street, forever scarred by a family massacre and the subsequent claims of a demonic infestation that fueled a book and film franchise. The history is undeniable fact mixed with controversial legend. In 1974, Rommel DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in their sleep. A year later, the Lutz family moved in and fled after 28 days, claiming they were terrorized by swarms of flies, green slime oozing from the walls, a demonic pig-like entity named Jody, and an unseen force that physically attacked them. The paranormal encounter, whether you believe the Lutzes or not, has been reported by countless outsiders since. Tourists and curiosity seekers often report feeling nauseous or dizzy when approaching the house. The sound of phantom gunshots has been heard. The iconic quarter-moon windows are said to sometimes reveal a shadowy, malevolent face staring out, watching the living with pure hatred. The climactic story comes from a news crew filming outside the home in the 1990s. During a live broadcast, their audio feed was suddenly overwhelmed by a deep, guttural growl that was heard by the entire viewing audience. The reporter, visibly shaken, cut the short. Later, upon reviewing their tape, they found the video had glitched at that exact moment, showing a distorted, red-eyed face flickering in one of the windows for a single frame. The Amityville house is a cornerstone of modern horror, a place where a real-life tragedy opened a door to something unimaginable, leaving a stain that no new family can ever truly clean. 7. The Shanley Hotel, Napanoch. A former brothel and hotel in the Hudson Valley, where the spirits of prostitutes, murdered clients, and a heartbroken former owner are trapped in a never-ending cycle of vice and violence. The history is as sordid as it gets. Owned by James Shanley, the hotel was a known spot for illicit affairs and backroom deals in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It's believed several murders occurred within its walls, and at least one prostitute died under mysterious circumstances. Shanley himself was said to have died of a broken heart after his wife left him. The paranormal encounter is aggressive and personal. The spirit of a prostitute named Claire is known to play with men's hair and whisper in their ears. The ghost of a young, mischievous boy named Jack runs through the halls. But darker presences also reside. Visitors are often scratched, pinched, or shoved. The sound of breaking glass and furious arguments are common. The climactic story is a terrifying account from a paranormal investigator. He was alone in the basement when he felt a rope being tightened around his neck from behind. He struggled, gasping for air, and managed to break free. When he checked his camera's footage, it showed a long, thick rope snaking through the air on its own, coiling itself around his neck, held by an invisible assailant. On his neck, a clear, red burn mark in the shape of a rope had appeared. The Shanley Hotel doesn't just show you its past, it actively tries to make you a part of it. 8. The House of Pandora, Rochester. A seemingly ordinary home in a quiet neighborhood that became a prison for a family, tormented by a violent, intelligent poltergeist they named the Man. The history is a modern, documented haunting. In the 1970s, the Moffat family was subjected to a barrage of paranormal activity, objects flying, furniture moving, disembodied voices, and physical attacks. The activity centered on their young daughter, and despite multiple exorcisms and investigations, the entity never left. It claimed to be the spirit of a man who had died there decades prior. The paranormal encounter was relentless. The family reported hearing their names called by voices mimicking loved ones. They would see a tall, shadowy figure with a wide-brimmed hat standing in their doorways. The entity would shake their beds violently at night and was known to throw kitchen knives. The climactic story was captured on audio by investigators. They were interviewing the family when a deep, guttural, and unmistakably male voice emanated from the young daughter, a voice that was not her own. It said, clear as day, "I am the man. I will never leave." This recording remains one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in paranormal history, a direct threat from a presence that had no intention of moving out. The House of Pandora is a terrifying example of a home invasion of the spectral kind, where the line between house and hostage situation is forever blurred. 9. The ruins of the Richardson Complex, Buffalo. A massive, abandoned asylum designed by a famous architect, a decaying palace of madness where the anguish of thousands of tortured souls has festered for over a century. The history is a textbook case of archaic, brutal psychiatry. Opened in 1880, the Buffalo State Asylum housed thousands of patients in often horrific conditions. Treatments included ice water baths, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies. Many patients died within its walls, forgotten by the outside world. The paranormal encounter is a symphony of despair. The sheer scale of the suffering has left an indelible mark. Visitors report hearing the echoes of screams and crying from the vast, empty tunnels that connect the buildings. Shadow figures dart between crumbling pillars. The sound of squeaking gurney wheels and slamming iron doors can be heard in the dead of night. The climactic story comes from an urban explorer who ventured deep into the forbidden tunnels. His flashlight failed, plunging him into absolute darkness. He then felt hundreds of cold, thin hands brushing against his body, pulling at his clothes, and whispering unintelligible pleas into his ears. He ran blindly, and when he finally found an exit and burst into the sunlight, his arms and face were covered in long, red scratch marks. The Richardson Complex is not just a building. It is a sentient cancer of sorrow, and it is always hungry for new company. 10. The Kings Park Psychiatric Center, Long Island. Another colossal, abandoned mental hospital, but this one is infamous for one of the most aggressive and terrifying ghosts in all of New York, the former chief of security, known as the Creeper. The history mirrors that of other asylums: overcrowding, questionable treatments, and patient deaths. But Kings Park has a unique legend. A former chief of security was a sadistic man who took pleasure in tormenting the patients. He died within the walls of the building he once ruled. His spirit, however, received a promotion. The paranormal encounter with the Creeper is the stuff of legend. He is described as a tall, shadowy figure that moves along the walls and floors with a spider-like crawl. He is intensely aggressive. Visitors report being chased by the entity, hearing his ragged, wet breathing right behind them. He is known to slam doors shut, trap people in rooms, and has been seen peering down from high ledges with glowing red eyes. The climactic story is a warning often shared by local explorers. A group was in the main building when they heard the distinct sound of dragging footsteps and jangling keys from the floor above. Suddenly, the footsteps were on the stairs. Then in the hallway with them. They shone their lights, revealing nothing. Then, from a dark doorway mere feet away, a low voice growled, "Get out." They didn't need to be told twice. Kings Park is a kingdom of the insane, still ruled by its cruel, spectral warden. 11. The Captain's Inn, Latham. A charming, 1700s bed and breakfast that was once a funeral home, where the friendly owner will gladly tell you about the ghosts, including a playful little boy and a woman in white. But she might not tell you about the dark, shadowy entity in the basement that isn't so friendly. The history is a mix of the mundane and the morbid. The building served as a residence, a tavern, and for a significant period, a funeral parlor. Countless bodies were prepared for burial in the basement. This prolonged exposure to death seems to have opened a doorway. The paranormal encounter is a tale of two haunts. Upstairs, the spirit of a boy named Jeremy plays hide-and-seek, and the woman in white is a gentle, if sad, presence. But the basement is different. It is a place of oppressive dread. A large, shadowy mass has been seen coalescing in the corner. It feeds on fear, growing larger and more solid the longer you stay. People have been grabbed, choked, and overcome with violent, suicidal thoughts while in its presence. The climactic story is from a guest who stayed in the room above the basement. He awoke to the sound of something heavy and wet being dragged up the stairs. His door then creaked open, and a foul, meaty smell filled the room. He saw a hulking, black shadow fill his doorway, with two pinpricks of red light where its eyes should be. It stood there, watching him, for what felt like an eternity, before slowly receding back down the stairs, the dragging sound following it. The Captain's Inn is a beautiful facade hiding a brutal truth. Sometimes, the most dangerous ghosts are the ones the host doesn't like to talk about. The one if by land, two if by sea restaurant, Manhattan. Hailed as one of the most romantic restaurants in the world, housed in a carriage house once owned by Aaron Burr, where the ambience isn't just candlelight and soft music, but the lingering spirits of Burr, his daughter Theodosia, and the star-crossed lovers who have dined there for centuries. The history is steeped in romance and tragedy. Burr's beloved daughter, Theodosia, was lost at sea, and he was said to have paced in the garden, awaiting her return. The building itself has been a gathering place for New York's elite for over 200 years, witnessing countless proposals, affairs, and broken hearts. The paranormal encounter is elegant, yet poignant. Women's restrooms have faucets that turn on by themselves, accompanied by the scent of a vintage perfume. A ghostly pianist has been seen and heard playing the establishment's grand piano after hours. Diners often report seeing the apparition of a beautiful, sad woman in a period gown, believed to be Theodosia, wandering the rooms, searching for her father. The climactic story was experienced by a chef closing up for the night. He was in the basement storage when he saw a man in an 18th century military coat staring into a large, antique mirror. The man turned, and the chef recognized him as Aaron Burr from Portraits. Burr looked at him, gave a sad, slight smile, and simply faded away. The chef later discovered that the mirror was one of Burr's original possessions. This restaurant is a place where the romance of the past is so powerful, it has literally refused to die. 13. The White Woman of Great Kills Park, Staten Island. A lonely stretch of beach and woods, where for over a century, drivers have reported a hitchhiking ghost, a woman in a white evening gown, standing by the road. But those who stop for her soon learn she is not looking for a ride, she is looking for revenge. The history offers several theories. Some say she was a bride killed in a car accident on her wedding night in the 1920s. Others believe she was a murder victim, her body dumped in the park. Whatever her origin, her purpose is clear: to terrorize the living. The paranormal encounter begins with a simple, eerie sight: a beautiful woman in a flowing white gown, sometimes holding flowers, sometimes crying. She will get into the back seat of a car that stops for her. But as the driver continues, they glance in the rearview mirror to see her face transforming into a skeletal, rotting horror. She then lets out a blood-curdling scream and vanishes from the moving vehicle. The climactic story is a modern account from a rideshare driver. He picked up a female fare matching the description from the park. She gave an address, but when he arrived, the back seat was empty. Confused, he drove off. At the end of his shift, he found a single, fresh, long-stemmed white rose on the back seat floor. And when he checked his app, the fare for that trip was listed as cancelled. The White Woman is a permanent resident of the park's periphery, a vengeful spirit forever reenacting her final, tragic journey. 14. The Dunkirk Lighthouse, Dunkirk. A picturesque, still operational lighthouse on the shores of Lake Erie, where the ghost of its most dedicated keeper still tends the light, ensuring no more ships are lost to the treacherous waters. The history is one of duty and tragedy. The lighthouse was built in 1827 after numerous shipwrecks. Its most famous keeper was Captain Silas Carter, who served for decades with unwavering dedication. He died in the keeper's house, his life's work complete, but his spirit could not abandon his post. The paranormal encounter is one of respectful, yet firm, supernatural activity. The sound of heavy, booted footsteps is heard walking the tower stairs and circling the outside walkway. The distinct smell of pipe tobacco fills the rooms. Doors lock and unlock on their own. But the most common report is of the lighthouse lamp turning on by itself, its beam cutting through the night, guided by an unseen hand. The climactic story was witnessed by a Coast Guard inspector. He was alone in the lamp room late one afternoon when the temperature suddenly dropped. He then saw the clear, full-bodied apparition of an older man in a keeper's uniform, his face grim with determination, polishing the brass fittings of the lamp. The inspector stood frozen, watching the ghost work for nearly a minute before it turned, looked directly at him, gave a single, solemn nod, and faded into the glass of the lantern pane. The Dunkirk Lighthouse is a place where a man's devotion was so powerful, it transcended death itself. 15. Sing Sing Correctional Facility, Ossining. The very name is synonymous with punishment. This maximum security prison, opened in 1826, has been the site of over 600 executions, countless murders, and immeasurable human suffering. It is a factory of misery, and the pain produced within its walls has condensed into a terrifying, sentient energy. The history is a relentless parade of the worst humanity has to offer. From the death house where the electric chair claimed 614 lives, to the violent riots and daily brutality of prison life, Sing Sing is a concentrate of evil and despair. Inmates spoke of the prison itself being alive and hungry. The paranormal encounter is aggressive, oppressive, and inescapable. Guards working the night shift report hearing the sound of cell doors slamming shut in empty blocks. The phantom smell of burnt flesh and ozone wafts from the execution chamber. Disembodied screams and desperate, sobbing pleas for mercy echo from the death row cells. Apparitions of former inmates, some with their heads shaved for the electric chair, are seen shuffling through the halls in leg irons. The climactic story comes from a former correctional officer. He was making his rounds in the old, abandoned block when he heard the distinct sound of the electric chair humming to life, followed by the sickening sizzle and pop of an execution. Then, from the darkness of a solitary confinement cell, a voice whispered directly into his ear, "You're next." He felt a jolt of electricity shoot through his body, knocking him to the ground. He was found by another officer minutes later, convulsing on the cold stone floor. Sing Sing is not just haunted by ghosts, it is a living, breathing entity of punishment. It is the absolute pinnacle of haunted New York, a place where the walls don't just talk, they scream. You have now walked the death row of Sing Sing, dined with Aaron Burr, and fled from the creeper in the asylum halls. You have seen that the haunting energy of New York State is as diverse and intense as the state itself. So we have to ask you, after witnessing these 15 sinister secrets, would you dare to request a table for two at one if by land, knowing Theodosia Burr might be joining you? Or would you spend a single night as a guard in the abandoned upper block of Sing Sing? Let us know in the comments which of these locations you would be most afraid to visit after dark. If this journey beyond NYC's glittering facade has unsettled you, help us keep the lights on at Ghostly Tales, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who thinks they know New York. And to make sure you join us for our next investigation into the unknown, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Because the shadows are always waiting. Until next time, sleep well, stay spooky.